What happens when a CEO, disguised as a rookie delivery driver, gets stopped cold by an old woman holding a broken photo frame? Yale Johnson had built his delivery business from the ground up after buying it 8 years ago from a retiring owner. It had grown fast, 15 locations across the state, hundreds of employees, thousands of deliveries a day. But lately, something felt off. Complaints were piling up. Not about the packages, but about the people: rude drivers, missed deliveries, damaged goods. He didn't trust the filtered updates from his district managers anymore, so he decided to see it for himself. Yale was 48, broad-shouldered, with streaks of gray in his beard. He shaved it, dyed his hair, and wore a pair of thick glasses. He'd never met most of the frontline workers. Turnover had been high the last few years, and he'd never set foot in the South Side location after its grand opening. It was one of the busiest hubs, and he'd heard rumors about staff burnout, but no solid reports. The perfect place to blend in. He walked in on a Monday morning wearing a faded blue hoodie and steel-toed boots. Nobody looked twice. "Name?" the store manager asked, flipping through a clipboard. "Derek. Derek Hall," Yale replied, using the alias his assistant set up. The manager, a wiry guy in his early 30s named Mason, gave him a once-over and shrugged. "You're the new temp. Great, we're short 2 drivers. One quit yesterday, the other's out sick. You'll be with Lana today." Yale nodded. "Sounds good." Lana was already loading crates into her van, her brown ponytail swinging behind her as she moved fast and smooth. She looked mid-20s, sharp eyes, no wasted motion, someone who knew her route like the back of her hand. "You Derek?" she asked, barely looking at him. "Yeah," he said, lifting a crate into the back. "Cool. Don't talk unless it's important. GPS is on. We've got 37 stops today. Let's move." She wasn't being rude, just efficient. Yale respected that. By the 5th stop, he was sweating. The vans didn't have working AC, and the heat bounced off the asphalt like fire. Lana didn't complain once. She double-checked every address, knocked twice, waited. At one point, she handed a package to a man in a wheelchair and helped him open it right there on the porch. "You know him?" Yale asked. "Yeah, Mr. Berkeley lives alone, can't open stuff with his hands anymore. Arthritis. His daughter lives in Oregon." Yale took a breath. These weren't just deliveries, these were people. Around stop 20, Lana pulled over and handed him a bottle of water. "You're not bad for a new guy. Most of them quit halfway," he grinned. "Thanks." They were running late by the time they reached the final few addresses. Lana looked at the manifest. "Next is Miss Alora Green. She's always last." "Why?" Yale asked. "She asks us to wait a little." "She's slow to get to the door. Lives alone, no family. Little weird, but nice, I don't mind." The house was small and faded, tucked behind a half-dead hedge. Lana knocked once, then waited. After a minute, the door creaked open. An old woman stepped out, holding a broken picture frame against her chest. Her hands were trembling. "Sorry," she said with a soft, shaky voice. "I dropped it. I thought it was my son's photo, but it wasn't. It was just—" "Never mind," Yale froze. Her voice cracked with something deeper than age. Lana stepped forward gently. "Miss Green, we brought your package. Do you want me to open it for you?" The woman nodded, wiping her eyes. "I can't lift much these days." Lana crouched beside her, opened the box, and pulled out a small electric kettle. "You got a new one." "That's good." "My old one broke last week," Miss Green whispered. "I've been boiling water on the stove. Takes me forever." Yale couldn't look away. The woman's house was silent. No photos on the walls, no sound except the hum of the fridge. Lana helped her plug it in. "There you go. This one shuts off by itself when it's done." Yale stepped closer. "Do you get deliveries often?" Miss Green looked at him, confused for a second. "Once a week. Groceries, sometimes medicine. I don't go out much." He saw the loneliness in her eyes, like she'd been waiting for this visit all day. "We'll make sure you get help if you ever need anything else," Lana said gently. Miss Green squeezed her hand. "You're always so kind. Thank you." Yale didn't speak the entire drive back. Something in his chest felt heavy. At the hub, Mason barely looked up from his phone. "You guys made it back." "Took you long enough." "We had 37 stops," Lana said flatly. "Still, try to be faster tomorrow." Yale watched as Lana's jaw clenched. Then she walked off without a word. He knew right then this wasn't just about delays or broken packages. It was about people being forgotten, not just customers, but the workers too, and tomorrow he'd stay longer. Watch more, ask questions, because something was deeply wrong here, and he wasn't going to fix it from behind a desk. Yale arrived 20 minutes before opening the next morning. The parking lot behind the hub was nearly empty, except for a dented gray sedan and a delivery van with one headlight out. He waited in the shadows near the loading dock, sipping black coffee from a paper cup and watching. A tall, stocky man with a buzz cut and a limp came around the corner, keys jangling in one hand. He unlocked the side door and disappeared inside. Yale followed 5 minutes later, slipping into the break room where a vending machine flickered dimly, and the air smelled faintly of sweat and cardboard. The stocky man was heating something in the microwave canned chili, judging by the smell. Yale set his bag down. "You knew?" the man asked without turning. "Yeah, Derek, temp, Ray, warehouse lead, don't block the door." He pulled out the steaming container and nodded toward the back. "If you're not driving, you're sorting. Trucks unload in 10. Gloves are over there." Yale grabbed a pair, then headed into the loading bay. The place buzzed with low-level tension boxes stacked unevenly, paperwork clipped to pallets, scuffed floors, and half-lit overheads. One of the dock workers, a young woman with a shaved head and headphones around her neck, was already stacking crates. She worked quickly, barely glancing up. Yale joined her silently. After a minute, she spoke. "You'll want to double-check the route sheets. They're usually wrong." "How do you mean?" he asked. "They get printed the night before, but no one updates them when packages get moved around. Last week, I had a guy deliver a week-old crate to the wrong town." "Anyone fix it," she snorted. "Depends who you ask." They kept working. Yale noticed some crates labeled for the next town over ones that should have been sent out yesterday. No one seemed concerned. The pace picked up when the first wave of drivers arrived. Lana came in last, her hoodie damp with sweat already. She didn't speak to anyone, just scanned her manifest and started loading. Mason arrived 15 minutes after the shift started. He wore sunglasses despite being indoors and carried a smoothie. He didn't greet anyone. "Hey," Yale said as he passed Mason near the lockers. "Quick question, who updates the manifests?" Mason didn't slow down. "Dispatch, not my department." "But if something's off, who?" "I said not my department." Yale watched him disappear into the office, door slamming shut behind him. By noon, Yale had joined another driver, Miguel, a middle-aged father of 3 who ran one of the longer routes. They drove through rural roads, potholes jarring the van every few minutes. Miguel had an easygoing way about him, humming along to the radio and offering Yale a banana from his lunchbox. "Been here long?" Yale asked. 4 years, started part-time. It was better back then. Fewer stops, better mileage pay." "What changed?" "New management. Started squeezing us. Same pay, more stops. They cut hours but expect overtime. I keep doing it because the kids need food." "I'm not trying to make waves." At a stop outside a weathered mobile home, Miguel carried a medical supply box up a ramp. A woman in a neck brace answered and thanked him. On the way back to the van, Miguel shook his head. She had her oxygen delayed last week. Someone forgot to scan it in. She was breathing out of a backup tank. Yale didn't respond. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Back at the hub that evening, drivers were returning. Lana looked pale, eyes sunken. She leaned against her van, rubbing her temples. Yale approached. "You good?" "I've got a splitting headache." "Didn't eat all day. You should tell someone." "Already did." Mason said to tough it out. "Said if I take time off again this month, I'll get dropped from the schedule next week. I'm not risking it." Yale opened his mouth, then stopped. Inside, he passed the break room again. Ray was arguing with another driver, a lanky teenager with braces and a limp posture. "You left 3 crates on the dock. They weren't on my list. Use your damn eyes. This isn't kindergarten." The kid looked like he might cry. Yale stepped in. "Maybe he needs some help understanding the process." Ray snapped his head toward him. "Oh, look, the temp wants to teach me how to run my dock. You want a promotion already? I want things not to fall apart." Ray scoffed and walked off, muttering under his breath. That night, Yale sat in his hotel room with a legal pad full of notes. He hadn't planned to stay more than 2 days, but things were worse than he thought. Not just inefficiencies, neglect, pressure, fear. He called his assistant and extended his stay another week. He'd rotate into the warehouse next, then ride with different drivers. He needed to see the full picture. The next morning, he worked under Ray directly. The man barked orders without explanation, criticized without offering solutions, and ignored half the mistakes happening right in front of him. At one point, a crate labeled Fragile Medical was tossed into the back of a van like it was a gym bag. "Hey," Yale said, stepping forward. "That's medical." Ray didn't look up. "It's packed tight, it'll be fine." "It's not supposed to be tossed. You want to file a report, go ahead." "You're not even permanent." Yale turned to a nearby worker, a quiet guy named Trevor who looked about 50, with gray hair and a limp in one leg. "Is this normal?" Trevor hesitated. "We used to have a policy about medical handling, but the posters came down last year." No one replaced them. That afternoon, Yale spotted Mason in the office, feet up on the desk, watching videos on his phone. He knocked on the glass. Mason rolled his eyes but opened the door. "I need to talk to you about something serious," Yale said. "Unless it's about a broken van, it can wait. It's about how people are being treated." Mason leaned back. "They're adults. They can quit if they don't like it." Yale stared at him. "That's your leadership style," Mason shrugged. "I'm not here to babysit. I hit my numbers." "That's all that matters." Yale walked out without another word. His hands were shaking. The following day, he rode with Lana again. She was quieter than before, her face drawn. After a few stops, he asked a question he hadn't dared before. "Why do you stay?" She looked out the window for a long time. "Because I've got a brother with a disability. I cover his food and meds. I can't afford to start over." He nodded slowly. "And because people like Miss Green matter. I don't want her to open that door and find someone who doesn't care." By the end of the day, it was pouring rain. As they unloaded the last crate, a driver named Vince pulled into the lot hours late. His van was half full. Mason stormed outside, yelling over the rain, "You're done, you hear me? You take off early again, I'll cut your hours to nothing." Vince didn't argue. He just kept his head down. Yale walked over. "What happened?" Vince looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "I got a flat in the middle of nowhere, no signal, took me 3 hours to get a tow." He didn't even ask. Yale turned to Mason. "Did he call?" "He's always got excuses." "I asked if he called. He left a voicemail. I didn't listen to it." Yale's voice dropped. "You're done," Mason blinked. "What? You're done? Step away from the staff before I call security." Mason laughed. "Who do you think you are?" Yale pulled off his glasses and stepped forward. "I'm the owner." The yard went silent. Mason's face went slack. "You're what?" "You've been ignoring complaints, mistreating staff, and letting packages go undelivered. You're suspended immediately pending investigation." "Gather your things." Mason didn't move. "I said now." He walked off, soaked and silent. Yale turned to Vince. "You're not in trouble. Go home. We'll talk tomorrow." Then he looked at Lana. "You still up for one more delivery?" She nodded. They drove in silence to Miss Green's. When she opened the door, Yale handed her a new photo frame. She smiled, eyes wet but warm. "You remembered," he nodded. "We remember the people who matter." The morning after Mason's suspension, the mood inside the Southside hub was brittle. No one said much. People moved slower, eyes glancing toward the now empty office where Mason used to plant himself behind the glass. A clipboard leaned against the wall where his daily route sheets used to be pinned. No one had replaced them. Yale arrived early again, this time without the hoodie or glasses. He didn't make an announcement. He just walked in wearing the same steel-toed boots and a windbreaker, nodding at the few workers who looked up. Some recognized him now, but no one said anything. Not yet. He found Ray in the warehouse, already barking at a temp about crate order. "Why is Route 12's manifest in this bin?" "That's for Route 9. You see the problem here, genius?" Yale stepped up beside him. "Ray, step into the back office with me." Ray turned, eyes narrowing. "I've got work to do." Now, inside the office, Yale shut the door behind them. The desk was half covered in old packing slips and a cracked monitor screen. "You've been leading the warehouse since last spring, correct?" Ray crossed his arms. "I've kept it running." "I saw you throw a fragile medical crate into a van. I've heard you berate temps in front of full staff. Yesterday you called a teen worker kindergarten because he missed a crate." Ray didn't flinch. "These people need to toughen up. We don't have time for hand-holding." Yale didn't sit. "You're fired. Effective immediately. This isn't about efficiency anymore. It's about basic respect. You're making a mistake." No, I made one letting it go on this long. Ray left without a word, no outburst, just grabbed his jacket and disappeared through the dock door. Outside the office, Yale looked over the warehouse floor. A few workers had paused and were watching quietly. He raised his voice just enough to carry. There are going to be changes. You'll get details at the end of the day. For now, if you need anything safety gear, manifest corrections, help on the floor, come find me directly. No one clapped. No one cheered. But the silence felt a little less tight. By mid-morning, Yale was working shoulder to shoulder with Trevor, helping reload a misrouted shipment. Trevor didn't speak much, but he moved with steady precision, checking each label twice. Yale asked, "How long have these misroutes been happening?" Trevor didn't look up. "Since we dropped the second shift, fewer hands, more errors." "Why didn't anyone flag it?" "I did. Got told to stop nitpicking." Yale nodded once. He didn't ask who told him. By noon, the first signs of backlog were starting to surface. 3 vans were idle because half their crates hadn't been sorted, and the dispatch screen showed over 200 packages still unassigned. He found Lana near the break room, sitting on an overturned crate with a protein bar in one hand and her phone in the other. She looked up, eyes scanning his face. "You're really not leaving, are you?" "No," he said. "And I'm not just here to watch anymore." She stood. "Then you need to know something else. The vans, half of them haven't had oil changes in months. 2 have bald tires. We've flagged it, but it keeps getting pushed." "Who's been in charge of fleet maintenance?" "Used to be handled out of Central. Then it got handed off to Mason." He stopped approving the requests. Yale didn't respond right away. Then he pulled out his phone and sent a message. A few minutes later, he made a call to Central. "Pull every maintenance report for the Southside fleet. I want a mechanic on site first thing tomorrow." "No exceptions." He hung up and looked at her. "Anything else that's being ignored?" She hesitated. "There's a guy, Gerald, works night shift. He's been sleeping in the break room some nights, doesn't talk much. I think he lost his place." "Have HR been informed?" "He's off the books." "Came through an agency. They cycle guys in and out so fast, no one really keeps track." Yale didn't ask more. He excused himself and went straight to the agency contact on file. By 2 in the afternoon, Gerald's name was verified. He was being paid under a daily rate, no benefits, no insurance. Yale didn't wait. He called the agency and terminated the contract. Then he found Gerald, a wiry man with deep lines under his eyes, restocking shrink wrap in the back. "Gerald." The man looked up, startled. "I'm the owner. I'm not here to fire you. I'm here to offer you a full-time slot. With benefits, you'll start tomorrow if you want it." Gerald's shoulders dropped slightly. "Why?" "Because you've shown up every night and we need people who show up." Gerald nodded. "I'll be here." At the end of the shift, Yale gathered the staff in the dock bay. A few drivers had already left, but most warehouse workers had lingered. "I've seen how hard you work. I've seen how much you're asked to carry without enough support. That changes now." He paused. "Tomorrow, we'll be operating on a revised schedule. Route loads will be capped at 30 stops. Every package will be scanned twice before loading. If you find an error, report it directly to me or the new interim lead, Trevor." Trevor blinked, surprised, but didn't protest. "Pay adjustments are coming, so are van repairs. Until then, no one drives a vehicle without clearance from our mechanic." He looked around the room. "This isn't about charity, it's about standards, and we start rebuilding them today." After the meeting, he walked alone through the now quiet warehouse. Lana found him near the rear loading dock. "You're doing more than I expected. You've all done more than should have been asked." She stepped closer. "There's one more thing." He waited. "There's a driver, Nico. He's solid, quiet, but Mason used to target him, gave him routes with more stair pickups, more bad zip codes. Nico never said anything, but I saw it, every week." "Why him?" "He's Guatemalan, doesn't talk much. Mason used to joke that it was natural selection for the harder routes." Yale didn't speak. He found Nico's file, perfect attendance, no complaints, excellent delivery rates. He met with Nico that evening in the lot, just before the sun dropped below the buildings. "You deserved none of that," Yale said. "I can't undo it, but I can start by making sure it never happens again." Nico nodded once. "I just wanted to work. You've more than proved yourself. Starting next week, you'll train new hires. Extra pay, better routes." Nico didn't smile, just shook his hand firmly. That night, Yale sat by himself at the motel desk, reviewing numbers. The South Side hub was bleeding efficiency not from laziness but from weight. Too few people carrying too much, under pressure from the wrong leaders. By the time the sun rose, a new mechanic was pulling into the lot. And Yale was already on his third cup of coffee, waiting near the dock, ready to meet the next shift. The problems weren't fixed. But they weren't hidden anymore. By the following Monday, the South Side hub felt more like a work in progress than a disaster zone, but barely. The backlog hadn't vanished, the vans still needed rotating repairs, and half the morning route manifests were being re-verified manually. Yale knew the changes he'd initiated would take weeks to stabilize. What mattered now was that the damage was no longer hidden behind office doors or filtered through managers, only concerned with numbers. He stepped into the warehouse at 6:40, nodding at Trevor, who was hunched over the new check-in board. It was a whiteboard Yale had ordered over the weekend, divided into columns: route, driver, load verified, van cleared. Simple, transparent, everyone could see it. Trevor handed him a clipboard with a short list of flagged crates. These were double-labeled, probably got reprinted by accident. Yale reviewed the list. Any idea how often that's happening? Hard to say. We weren't checking before. Keep pulling them. I'll follow up with dispatch. Across the lot, the mechanic Archero was under the second van in line, grease up to his elbows, a socket wrench clinking rhythmically as he worked. When Yale approached, he rolled out and sat up slowly. Rear brake lines were down to thread. This should have been off the road 3 weeks ago. Can we keep it running? Barely. I'll finish the line today, but we need replacements, at least 5. I'll get them ordered. As Yale stood, he spotted Lana near the fuel station, briefing 2 new hires. She had one hand resting on a folder and the other pointing at the side panel of a van. The new drivers, both young, both clearly nervous, nodded as she explained the loading process. Her tone was even, grounded, no wasted words. Yale waited until they walked off before approaching. "You good with training? Better than I expected," she said. "I think one of them thought we just tossed boxes and drove around. What about you? How are you holding up?" "I'm tired," she said, but it's a different kind of tired. He could hear the difference in her voice. Not relief, exactly. Just the absence of dread. Inside the break room, Yale held a scheduled meeting with the remaining office staff. Dispatch coordinator, 2 floor supervisors, and the HR liaison who'd been assigned from Central 3 days prior. He kept it brief. Starting Friday, performance reviews will include employee feedback. Anonymous, rotating, and mandatory. If you're supervising people, they'll have a voice. The dispatch coordinator, a wiry man named Colin, raised a hand. What if it turns into a popularity contest? It won't. We'll review patterns, not outliers. But if the people you manage consistently report mistreatment, it's going to be addressed. This is non-negotiable. The HR liaison, a woman in her 40s with a legal pad already filled, nodded. We'll integrate that into the compliance framework. Good, Yale said. Also, Gerald's onboarding is confirmed, paperwork's in. He's scheduled for benefits orientation Wednesday. Thanks. He left the meeting without lingering. The fewer speeches, the better. By early afternoon, Lana flagged him down behind the loading dock. Got something you should see. She led him to the far end of the warehouse, where a stack of crates had been shoved behind a row of unused shelving. Dust had collected along the edges. These are from last quarter, she said. I found a tag dated February. Why weren't they sent out? Wrong barcodes. Someone must have caught the error and just parked them here instead of reprocessing. Yale opened one. Inside was a sealed box of air filters. Another held small medical parts. The third had baby formula expired by now. He closed the last crate, expression tight. Who was in charge of inventory 3 months ago? Same guy that handled Mason's reports. He left last month. Quiet exit. Yale stepped back. We'll log these and file a report with the customer service team. Make sure nothing else like this is buried. He drafted a correction protocol that night. Any misrouted or damaged item would now be logged instantly on a shared tablet system, no more paper slips. Dispatch would receive live updates, and the new floor supervisor would be responsible for a daily cross-check before loads went out. But even as policies changed, the culture remained fragile. 2 days later, Yale arrived just before dawn to find one of the newer drivers, Kelvin, slouched near the vending machine, face pale, hands shaking slightly. "You all right?" Yale asked. Kelvin straightened. "Didn't sleep. Got yelled at yesterday. Said I missed a pickup, but I never got the crate." "Who told you that?" Guy from dispatch. "Said it was on me." Yale walked with him to the dock, pulled up the crate record on the tablet. The item had been misassigned to a different route entirely. Kelvin had never had it. "You're clear," Yale said. "I'll talk to dispatch." Kelvin hesitated. "Thanks, I thought I was going to get fired." "You're not. You didn't do anything wrong." Later that morning, Yale called Colin from dispatch into the office. "You blamed a driver for a crate he never received." Colin looked up from his tablet. "He missed the scan." "No, he didn't. The crate was routed to someone else. You didn't check. You assumed." Colin shifted in his seat. "I've got a lot of crates to process. We're behind." "That's not an excuse." "You blame someone without proof again, you're out." Colin nodded stiffly, jaw tight. "Understood. Good. I want crate assignments reviewed by 2 sets of eyes moving forward. You and the floor lead. No exceptions." By Thursday, the tone of the hub had changed again, not fixed, but steadier. People weren't rushing as much, but they weren't dragging either. The whiteboard was mostly filled in by 10 each morning. Routes were capped at manageable loads. Even the break room, usually silent, now had soft conversation in the corners. Yale stood outside during the final loadout of the week, watching as vans rolled out in staggered departure windows. Lana passed by, clipboard in hand, giving a quick nod. "We're down to 3 late crates this week," she said. "Down from 17, he exhaled slowly. "We'll get it to 0. Eventually." She hesitated, then added, You could have just fired half the crew and started over." "I could have," Yale said, "but most of these people weren't the problem. They were surviving the problem." She smiled faintly. "You'll probably lose money on this quarter. Not the first time, won't be the last." As the last van pulled out, Yale turned toward the warehouse. Inside, Gerald was stacking shrink wrap with quiet precision. Nico was reviewing a map with one of the new drivers. Trevor was filling out a van inspection form near the wall. Yale watched them for a moment, then walked out the side door. That evening, he drafted a memo to the entire company, every hub, every region. It outlined the new employee feedback process, mandatory leadership training for all regional managers, and a rotating undercover audit program. He wouldn't be the only one going out into the field anymore. Every executive would rotate quietly, anonymously, and regularly. Before sending it, he read it once more. Then he added one final sentence at the bottom. "Respect is not optional, it's operational." He hit send. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like the company he'd built was finally his again, not just the numbers, the people.